So a while back I released a video about Disney's Snow White, and I ended it with a teaser saying that it was the first in a series which would eventually cover every Disney animated feature. For 4 months, no one watched this video. Then one day, everyone watched this video. This was very exciting for me, but also very terrifying, because I was suddenly waking up each morning to dozens of comments asking where the other 57 Disney videos were. Now I do intend to continue making them, but they take me quite a long time to write and research, and I can't really expect to grow my audience or someday start a Patreon if I'm only putting out 3 or 4 videos a year. And so, in a shameless ploy to pad out the channel with some quick, low-effort content, I give you the series premiere of Disney Dumpster Dives. Here's the pitch. Anytime I'm struggling to get the next essay finished, I'll go to Disney+, pull up their complete catalog of films in alphabetical order, and use a random number generator to select a title to review. Doesn't matter if it's a nature documentary, or a Disney Channel original, or a tentpole Marvel movie, as long as it's not one of the animated features for which I'm already planning an essay. These will be sincere reviews judging each work on its artistic merit. They'll also be much shorter and quite likely much worse than the essays, but my hope is that they'll alleviate my writer's block enough that I can still put out the longer videos just as quickly. That said, this is something of a pilot episode. If it doesn't do well, I probably won't make more. So if you do like it, be sure to let me know in the comments. And now, without further ado, let's roll that 851-sided die and see what turns up on our very first Disney Dumpster Dive. Belle's Magical World. What? What the? Who drew Belle's face here? Did they forget what they were doing and switch to Jasmine halfway through? Belle's Magical World is a 1998 anthology midquel to Beauty and the Beast. It follows the 1997 midquel, The Enchanted Christmas, and likewise takes place during Belle's stay at the castle, presumably sometime after her fight with the wolves, but before the Beast gives her a library. I'm glad we get to start with something from the direct-to-video era. It perfectly captures the feeling I was hoping for of digging through a lot of trash to see if there's anything good underneath. Even assembly line animation takes a tremendous amount of work, and even third-tier Disney is still a dream job for most animators. So you can bet that however quickly these films were rushed out, there were still talented people behind the scenes doing their best to sneak in some real artistry. If you can find just one good film in a batch like this, or even just one good scene, it feels much more rewarding than finding something good in, say, the Criterion Collection. That said, Belle's Magical World is not a hidden gem. It's generally considered among the worst of the Disney sequels, ranking at or near the bottom of most online countdowns. I don't know where I'd rank it myself, because despite being a 90s Disney boy, I haven't actually seen very many of these films. I did see The Enchanted Christmas, which is actually quite good. It's got catchy songs, memorable new characters, ambitious animation, and a much better excuse for existing in the middle of the original film's narrative. Christmas movies can be sentimental without any significant character growth, so it's not that awkward to shoehorn in a holiday subplot without disrupting the continuity of the original story. You could easily imagine that there was a whole standalone Christmas chapter in the book that they just didn't have room for in the first film, so it kinda makes sense. Belle's Magical World, on the other hand, is clearly just treading water in this universe. You can't make it a prequel, cause Belle wouldn't be there, and you can't do a sequel, cause all the characters would be human, so you get a film that just shows us some day-in-the-life antics without moving anything forward. It feels much less like a movie than a collection of episodes from an abandoned TV show that someone compiled onto one tape with a generic title to sell to kids. And yeah, it turns out that's pretty much exactly what happened. It's divided into 3 chapters with no framework except for an empty CGI library that looks like a cheap DVD start menu. Most of the original cast have returned, with the exception of Angela Lansbury, and they're all fully committed, though honestly it's kinda jarring to hear the real voices of the characters when the animation is so inferior. I think this might be the first film ever animated on 24s. It's jerkier than a roller coaster, the coloring is sloppy, and the expressions are all over the place. Seriously, why are Belle's eyes so far apart? The first chapter is called The Perfect Word, and it's about forgiveness and learning to apologize.
I will never apologize!
Belle and the Beast get into an argument at dinner. He starts abusing his staff, she calls him rude and storms out, and he goes crazy and smashes all the dishes on the table. all of whom, by the way, we had just seen were very much alive, and in the next scene are very much not. So yeah, Beast is a murderer now, deal with it. Then for some reason there's debate as to which of them should apologize first, which is quite problematic.
You want me to apologize? To him?
Let's just say if you're someone who thought Belle was too submissive in the original, you're not gonna like this one. The lesson seems to be that calling someone out for abusive behavior is exactly as bad as abusive behavior.
I suppose I do owe him an apology. For calling him rude, I mean.
You are deformed.
I am deformed.
And you are ugly.
And I am ugly.
So after some awkward cuts to everyone acting sad over absurdly dramatic music, the story passes to 3 new characters: a pen, a dictionary, and a stack of parchment. Although the parchment only has like 5 sheets, does he just die when they run out? Anyway, they forge an apology letter from the Beast, which fixes things for like 2 minutes, but then he finds out and exiles them.
It's a forgery.
They leave, get lost, come back, everyone argues for a while, and eventually they all learn to forgive each other. Oh, and Belle sings a song at the end, but it's the only song in the film and it's not really related to anything we just saw. I'm guessing it was meant to be the theme for the TV show and they just didn't know where else to put it, cause until it was over, I honestly couldn't tell if it was supposed to be the end of the first episode or the start of the second one.
I can hear you, you can hear me, when we listen with our hearts.
So it ends up just being a kind of odious morality tale, but it's not all bad. I like that they stick to the angry version of the Beast.
But they didn't mean...
Silence!
It would have been easy enough to just play him softer like he is towards the end of the first film, but they really commit to keeping him just as hot-tempered and violent as he should be at this point. Also, shout out to Robbie Benson's genuinely great vocal performance. He clearly knows exactly what movie he's in.
I'm sorry. It's hard to read while you eat those.
But they're my favorite.
And there are some other nice little touches. I like that the castle still maintains trade communications with the outside. It doesn't really add anything to the story, but it's interesting world building. I like the cute little way that they avoid telling us what the Beast's real name is.
Sincerely and so forth.
I like that the book Belle's reading is Cinderella, which fits in nicely with the fan theory that the book from the original film is Aladdin. I like, this gargoyle. But mostly you're just gonna spend this episode adjusting your brain to the choppy animation, the unearned swells of emotion, and Belle's sudden lack of self-esteem. None of which are going to improve as the film goes along, but let's press on and see what else it has to offer. The second episode is about Fifi. You remember Fifi? Or, wait, wasn't her name Babette?
Sweet Babette.
I'm confused. What did they call her in the live-action version?
I would risk anything to kiss you again, Plumette.
Yeah, well, that's clearly not it. Anyway, the second episode is about the Feather Duster. You remember the Feather Duster? Well, she's a murderer now too. Or at least she tries to be. The premise of this one is that Lumiere forgets to plan anything for their 5th anniversary and asks for Belle's help. And through a series of surprisingly saucy misunderstandings, Fifi comes to believe that the two are having an affair.
We cannot do it here. The little one might see us.
She gets so wild with jealousy that she sabotages Lumiere's plans for a romantic sleigh ride by cutting the reins so they'll break mid-drive, and send Lumiere, Belle, and this innocent bathtub to an almost certain death. Turns out the plan was all for her, so it's she who goes over a cliff with Lumiere, and Belle has to unleash her inner Chien Po and save everyone. And that's really it. There's kind of a lesson about Lumiere learning to speak from the heart. Apparently he's never said I love you, even though they've had 5 years of curtain makeouts together.
I've been burnt by you before.
But really this one is just for fun, and I actually enjoy it a lot. It's too ridiculous to take seriously, so it gets away with some darker and bawdier humor than we're used to from these characters.
Well, perhaps it'll be easier if you pretend that I am Fifi. She has no shame.
Also, Kimmy Robertson's performance is right up there with Robbie Benson's. I really like the way she says tuba.
Tuba?
And Fifi makes a great villain. I love these shots of her just getting more and more maniacal as she goes full Frollo in front of the fireplace.
If I cannot have the joy, no one shall.
Like fire, hellfire.
It's much more obvious that this one was intended for television, which works in its favor. If you had just one chance to make a Beauty and the Beast movie, you wouldn't spend a third of it on Fifi, but since this is just a silly little diversion, it gets to do pretty much whatever it wants with the story. You can turn a character into a full-on homicidal psychopath, and as long as things wrap up by the end, we won't really worry about it. Really, it doesn't even wrap up. Fifi never confesses to trying to kill everyone, it's just her little secret forever. But c'est la vie.
Sometimes things are just as they seem.
Wait, that wasn't the moral at all. Now, okay, I guess we're moving on. So in the final episode, we learn that the Beast hates birds.
I found a bird today, and
You found a what?
Like, to an absurd degree. Can't stand them. Hates their f***ing guts. Except I guess that carrier pigeon from the first episode, that guy was okay. I think this segment is supposed to take place before that one, though. The chronology is weird, but it seems from the dialogue like Belle has only just arrived at the castle here, and it even recycles some of the early story beats from the original film.
You're having lunch with me.
am I?
Will you come down to dinner?
No.
Unfortunately, that's not all that gets recycled. Whatever budget they had ran out here, and a lot of the animation is directly ripped from the original. But they at least had the decency to cheapen it up so it looked consistent with the rest of this film. I think the whiplash of switching back and forth between these two styles in the same episode would have blinded people. But Belle rescues a bird and the Beast chases it around the castle until he suffers a surprisingly graphic neck injury, and when he wakes up,
That's beautiful.
he loves birds. Adores them. From this moment forward, he is all birds all the time.
The bird must never leave the castle.
So he locks it in a cage and tries to make it sing for him in a nice, if on-the-nose metaphor for his relationship with Belle. And to this episode's credit, this is the only time in the film that Belle even remotely acknowledges that she's a prisoner.
Why don't you let him out?
He'd get away.
Would you blame him? I would too if...
There's also a B-plot about Cogsworth struggling to maintain the respect of his staff, who break into dance whenever he speaks like he's Charlie Brown or something. It's pretty predictable, but it does tie in with the main story, since both he and the Beast must learn that a gentle hand can be more effective than a firm one. Beast sets the bird free, but it falls, he jumps down to rescue it, Cogsworth falls too, and they all end up hanging from the roof together. Yes, there are 2 roof-hanging scenes in the same 70-minute film.
Can you forgive me, my friends?
No, Cogsworth, we already did a forgiveness episode. The theme of this one is birds. But it all turns out okay, and the Beast learns that if you show someone they can trust you, they might just come back to you of their own free will. It's nice foreshadowing for the end of the original film, and just subtle enough that we can believe the Beast still hasn't noticed the parallels himself. Thematically, this is probably the strongest episode. It's internally consistent, and there are some okay setups and payoffs.
I had meant to have that cape mended.
But it's by far the least fun. It's slow and repetitive and full of tedious clock puns.
My, how time flies.
That's another thing Enchanted Christmas did better. That movie had some stellar pun work.
It's not fair!
Don't whine, Glasses.
I definitely prefer the bonkers energy of the second episode, and the first one was at least on the border of so bad it's good territory, but this one's just kinda competent, so there's nothing to distract from how cheap it looks as it limps towards the end credits. Plus, they really should have put their one song here instead. It's not a great song, but at least it would be an ending, and it fits much better with this story anyway.
And listen with our hearts, and listen with our hearts.
Alright, so what's the final takeaway on Belle's magical world? Well, I don't hate it. It's bad, but at least it's upfront about its badness. The Disney sequels were designed to trick kids into thinking that they were real movies, so they demand to watch them even if it was torture for the parents. I don't think any kids are going to be fooled by this one, though. This is obviously just a bargain bin TV collection whose only purpose is to give us an extra hour or so with the characters. The special edition release even included a 4th episode, which I didn't review here since it's not in the Disney Plus version, but it doesn't make any difference to the overall quality. This is clearly content, not cinema, as that actor from Shark Tale would put it, so I don't really bear it any ill will for existing, and it's not like it does any major disservice to the characters. Except, I guess, this.
I suppose I do owe him an apology.
And this. Oh, and this. Okay, so it's pretty bad, but I can hardly criticize Disney for wanting to keep the money flowing between their larger productions when that's literally the exact same reason I'm making this video. I'm gonna give Belle's Magical World a final score of 19 Dalmatians. Pretty measly as far as Dalmatians go, but I'm sure there are worse movies in the Disney dumpster, and maybe we'll get to one next time. But until then, keep on dreaming, and please do let me know in the comments if you'd like to see more videos like this. I am your prisoner. My only wish is to make you happy.
This is getting embarrassing. We should leave.
But they're my favorite.